Hello, everybody. Welcome to Albion Obsessed, episode number 23. I said I wasn't going to do the numbers, Tom, and I've already done it.
Oh, no,
Sorry.
mate. Well, it's too late now. Too late now.
Well, far too late. Episode number 23. I'm pretty sure of that as well. I am known to get it wrong, Matt. But
Okay.
hey ho. But today we are joined by Tom. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing good, mate. It's Friday and I'm feeling good.
Amazing. I've had this week off of work, and it doesn't feel like Friday at all. I'm back at work tomorrow, so really it feels like a Sunday, which
Very
sucks a little bit, but hey. And we are also joined by ex Brighton Hove Albion Football Club Kitman, Matt. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And have you had a good week off work?
Yeah, it's been all right, mate. Just been cracking on with getting some Albion Obsessed stuff done. You've given me a nice little segue there because we have just released the Albion Obsessed website, which is looking very nice.
I did see that earlier, and it's looking quite swanky. That
Amazing. Thank you very much for checking that out. Yeah, I've sorted out a fans forum thing. So if you want to sign up for that, Matt, feel free to do so. Shameless
take
plug.
a look at that.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to get
But yeah, it's all looking
chat
good.
run for their money.
Yeah, it's about time someone starts competing with them, and we're gonna try, but we'll see how far we get. Anyway, as I say, we are joined by ex kitman of the Albion, Matt, and we have some tasty stories for you today. But first of all, I guess what people will want to be knowing is how does that come to be? How do you get into being kitman of, obviously at the time, a championship club? Were we?
Yeah, we were in the championship at the time. So Oscar Garcia was the manager at the time. So I was just working in the shop in the ticket office. And the old kit man, Chris Leopard, used to always pop in on a match day in a bit of a rush, needing a shirt printing. So I always ended up doing it. And then in the summer, before I actually started the job as kit man, the head of the women's department, Tracy Doe, came down with all the women's kit, needing someone to print it. So I sort of said, "Oh well, I'll do it. But do you not have a kit man?" And they were like, "No, no, no." And I was like, "Oh, do you need someone?" And they said, "Oh yeah, that would be nice." So I started doing the job as the women's kit man for a bit, and then come the October, the sort of the kit manager at Brighton, Clive, he sort of said, "Look, I need a bit of a hand. Do you fancy coming over and helping out with the first team?"
Oh,
And
amazing.
like within a few months, really, of doing the women's job, I was thrust straight into the first team.
Nice.
Bloody hell. Wow. So it is literally, because a lot of people say, like, if you want to pursue your dream job or if you want to be working in the club, it's literally get your foot in the door. And as you say, it's working in the ticket office in the shop. And then suddenly,
Exactly. It's definitely who you know, not what you know. Sometimes in football.
yeah. Mad. Oh, fair enough. And yeah, so Oscar Garcia was manager at the time. So when was that moment you first started working with the first team, and like what was that like? Because I imagine you was like in and around the training ground, taking specific requests from them.
Yeah, so we were based in the old training ground at the university just over the road, which when you sort of go over there for the first time, you sort of wonder how we were a championship club. And a club with the stadium that we had, and the changing facilities were like what you would get in an old senior school that was built about 60 years ago. It was horrendous. So the first day, it was a bit daunting because I didn't know what to expect. It was an early start. I knew nothing of what the players wanted, etc. So I was sort of learning on the job. But all the lads were great with me first day. They're cracking on with the banter straight away. I was lucky I knew a few of the lads already, so I knew Donkey, I knew Ashley Barnes as well. So it was quite easy to settle in, and yeah, it was nice. It was good. It was a good first day from what I remember, anyway.
Oh, decent. Tom,
Nice.
did you have any questions at all?
I've got many, many questions, but I suppose so. First day, what was when you walked in to that sort of situation? What was going through your head? Is it sort of like, oh my god, I'm here, or was it just did it feel very natural?
It was sort of. I think I've been quite lucky because I've been doing it with a women's team. It was sort of like I understood it a little bit, what was necessary and stuff. But I was also in there absolutely shifting it, going, well, I better not make myself look like an absolute twat on my first day, because that's in football, that's all you'll get remembered for.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit, like I say, it's a bit daunting to begin with, walking in and having all the players there. I mean, at the end of the day, I was a fan as well. Prior to being the kit man, I was travelling home and away supporting them, and so being there with all the players, it was quite daunting to begin with. But once you get to know them, they were all right, and they were just human beings at the end of the day. So it was kind of nice, and we were lucky as well. Like, there was a really good group of players there at the time, and there wasn't anyone that you would really say, "Oh, avoid him at all costs." They were all a really nice bunch of lads. They had a good crack, good laugh, good jokes. But they were really nice and supportive as well. So as with the coaching staff as well, I mean, I'll get on to a couple of the stories about the coaching staff that they were there at the time. So obviously you had Oscar as manager, Nathan as assistant, who I still keep in contact with sort of every week now. And then there's, Ruben, who was the goalkeeping coach, who was absolutely off his trolley, crazy. And then you had Juan Torrijos, who was the fitness coach, who was just the most passionate Spaniard I've ever met in my life. He was honestly, just them two, Juan and Ruben, were just, I can't even describe how crazy they were. They were a good bunch, though. They were a really good bunch.
No,
Excellent.
they certainly sounded it. And Oscar was very reserved in his interviews and as he come across to fans as well. I'm not 100% sure how decent his English was, or maybe he put it on to let the media not quite get what he's saying. But how was he like behind the scenes? Did you have much to do with Oscar at all? Or?
Yeah, Oscar was good. I mean, in training, he would stand on the side a lot and watch, and he'd direct every now and then. It was mainly Nathan that did the sessions. Now, I mean, obviously, a lot of you know Nathan Jones very well. He's loud, and likes his voice to be heard. If you've watched any Luton games on the telly, especially over lockdown, all you can hear is this dodgy Welsh accent. But so he was the voice. But if Oscar needed to put his stamp on something, he'd get involved. I mean, he used to do this thing, and he used to do it to me, which really annoyed me. Is he'd always have a ball at his feet, and if you walked past him, he'd roll it through your legs. And it became a bit of a thing because he kept doing it to me, and it really, really frustrated me. But he was quiet. But he when he spoke, it was one of them where you really do listen, because he was really, really knowledgeable. And I mean, obviously at the moment I'm training to be a football coach and manager. I'm doing it at university, and I look at what he was like, and I learned a lot off of him. And the way he plays the game, the way he wants the teams to play football. He was phenomenal, and it was such a shame that he left the club, because I think they would have been in the Premier League the year after. And it's funny that that semi-final at Derby, I remember at the full-time whistle, I was sat in the dugout with him, and he was, all the Derby fans on the pitch going crazy, and he was just there, sat there, and I was sort of sat next to him. No words were spoken. We sort of both got up, went back into the dressing room. We're walking up the tunnel. It was just me and him, just arms around each other. And I said, "Don't worry, mate. We'll win the league next year." Thought, "Oh yeah, I'll add that little bit of come on, that little bit of grit there."
Yeah.
And he's walking into the dressing room, and he's resigned in front of everyone, all the players and staff, there and then.
Wow.
And I was just there like, I wish I didn't say that now.
Jeez, what were the players' reactions to that?
I think there was a few of them that saw it coming, if I'm honest with you. There wasn't as big a shock there as I anticipated. I mean, as certainly as I had. But, I think some of them were a bit surprised, because I think they felt that, with the squad that we had, it wasn't the greatest squad in the world, but we got to the playoffs, and, with a couple of additions in the summer, I think we could have really gone for it the next season. You know, obviously that was a season that Sammy took over. You know, and I listening to some of your podcasts today, the Nottingham Forest game.
Yeah,
A lot.
that game.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk about that a little bit later on, but
Mhm.
you know that was a significant game, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I was doing in that game as well. But I'll let you carry on first.
Fair enough. And like, just because I'm sure people are reminiscing about that Oscar Garcia squad as you're speaking, because you've given us some already. We're 11 minutes in. You've already given us amazing insight into that squad. Probably one of my favorite squads at the Amex as well, for sure. Who was like the best or the leading character in that side?
Oh, I mean, to be fair, there were quite a few in there. Matty Upson, you know, for all of his experience, he was fantastic, and you know, and I think without him in the side, I don't think we would have gone as far as we did. But I also, you know, you look at the other sort of experienced players that we had in that side. We had Gordon Greer, who I think is probably one of the most underrated captains Brighton have ever had. That he doesn't really get talked about, you know, but he was real passionate and he was a real leader in that dressing room. He really galvanised everyone, you know. And then you had Stephen Ward, you know, who was an international left back. You had Keith Andrews in that midfield. I mean, them two together were just an absolute nightmare. You couldn't understand a word they were saying half the time, but they really got into the lads, and you know, and then you had like the homegrown players coming through, like you know, like Dunkey and you know Forster Kasky as well. You know, they were phenomenal, and you know, Kasky is one of the players that I really wish his career went in a different direction with Brighton, because he was a phenomenal footballer. You know, you see him in training; he was unreal sometimes. You know, and it just never ever worked out for him. And unfortunately, he's gone to Charlton and has suffered with two really serious injuries, and he's just coming back from his second knee injury now. And you know, and you just think with him what might have been. You know, at one point he had Premier League clubs crawling all over him.
Yeah.
You know, so but you know,
Do you
we
think
also
he
had.
struggled? Sorry to cut in. Do you think he was a victim to the change of manager then when Oscar went? Do you think if Oscar stayed on, then we would have seen him push on?
Massively, I think he definitely struggled under Huppier, because of the way Huppier played. It was very
Mm.
much, you know, I heard someone say this in one of your podcasts earlier, but you know, Huppier was ahead of his time. You know, he was very much how Liverpool are now with Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, but Huppier was doing it with you know Bruno and I can't even remember who was left back that year, but I think it was Joe Bennett actually. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, because he used to
and
come on forward and then he'd get caught out and then yeah.
you know, and it was never it would be use the fullbacks as the extra midfielders and actually use the midfielders that we had. And you know, with Kasky not being the biggest of guys, you know, physically he couldn't compete in a game, so he sort of struggled a bit, and that's where he started to fall out of favour a little bit.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that Jake Forster-Kasky debut against Southampton at the Amex under Poyet, and he was just fantastic. And he was, I think it was what 16, 17 at the time.
Yeah, he was really young.
He was so good, and I had such high hopes for him, and I always really rated him. I always thought he got a really rough, a bit of a rough ride from some of the Brighton fans. They were expecting almost too much because obviously he was a young lad and he made his debut at such a young age. But no, it's a real shame to see kind of like it didn't work out for him because, as I say, I had really high hopes, and I thought his year under Garcia was, you know, he built upon the previous year where I think he'd gone out on loan to Oxford.
Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, it's just a real shame that we didn't get to see the best out of him.
I think what helped him as well in the Oscar Garcia team was having Jesse Lingard in the side. You know, because he was they were both similar age. They knew each other really well, but you know, you could see the quality that Jesse had as a footballer, and with him and Jake playing together every day in training, and you know, you could really see the benefits that sort of that loan deal was having on Jake. And you know, it's just such a shame that he is where he is now, because he could easily be a Premier League player, but I'm sure that once he's fit, he's going to be one of the leading players in League One. And if Charlton don't get to the Championship, I'm sure he'll get to the Championship without a shadow of a doubt.
Good.
Yeah. Just looking on the flip side of that, you mentioned obviously he really could have gone on and been a class Premier League player. Two players that would have been there at the same time as yourself then would have been Liam Bridcut and Will Buckley, who obviously left for the Premier League and things didn't quite work out for them. What, obviously, as an aspiring football coach, what do you think went wrong for them at the Premier League level? Was it joining the wrong club at the wrong time, or?
I think because obviously they both followed Gus, didn't they? And I think where Gus had such an affinity with Brighton as a team, as a club, and with the fans, he went up to Sunderland without any Premier League managerial experience, and he sort of wanted to bring a little bit of what Brighton had and who he trusted, and he had an immense trust in Liam and Will. And as soon as the interest in both of them came about, you could tell straight away they wanted to leave. There was no, but I've got to say they were both professional. I know there was a lot of things written about Liam Bridcut about how unprofessional he was. There was none of that with him. He was there. He made it clear that he wanted to leave and he wanted to follow Gus, but he never down tools or anything like that, refused to play. I've heard all sorts of things, but he was professional right down to the very last, sort of day that he was there. But I think with Will Buckley, he struggled a lot with injuries. And when you're going up to the Premier League, that extra bit of sort of, the strength and conditioning that you need, I just think his hamstrings certainly couldn't live up to it with his speed and with his size. And I think, when Liam Bridcut went there, it was very much he had a way of playing with Gus. And when you had the egos that Sunderland had in the dressing room and the players on big wages, I just don't think they ever bought into what Gus would have wanted. And when you bring in two players who were Championship players, by all accounts, they'll struggle in that environment. So, I think had they stayed at Brighton, I think they would have flourished and really gone on to bigger and better things. And Will Buckley sort of faded away. I know he's retired now. I think he's an agent now or something like that. And Liam Bridcut's playing for Lincoln in League One. And you think the quality that he had, he should still be in the Championship now. So I think they definitely let their heads overrule their hearts a little bit, and that was a shame to see them leave.
Yeah.
Do you think there was much of a hangover from Poyet when obviously Poyet left, and quite a what's the way to put it? Well, obviously it was he pretended, I don't know what was, like, did he get fired live on TV?
No. So at that time I was working in the shop still, and obviously after the playoff semi-final, it all came out in the sort of the news after the game about Poogate, and then the next day there was an all staff email that Gus had sent round, sort of lambasting everything. I think what people have got to remember is Gus wanted to leave during that season. I don't know if people know the ins and outs of it. From what I've been told from people inside the club, it was he wanted £5 million to sign two strikers on loan that would have guaranteed us promotion. He got told under no uncertain terms no, so he quit after the Palace 3-0 win in the league at home. And I think Tony Bloom got into him and said, look, please just stay till the end of the season, we've got something really special here. And he did. And then with all the events that surrounded the Palace game, it just sort of boiled over. I mean, he sent round an all-staff email lambasting the Poogate. Whoever did it is a shambles, and you've let the club down, and it was all your fault. And then he added to that as well. I don't know if you remember that day. They had them clappers, to make extra noise. That was actually the retail manager's idea. to create a bit of an atmosphere. And because Gus wasn't consulted on that, he sort of put that in there in the email that he wasn't happy with that decision not going through him, and it was all messy. I mean, I'll ask you guys because obviously you're fans as well. From your point of view, what happened with Poogate? What do you think? Have you?
Charlie
Well,
Otway.
I know what happened. So
there's the rumours it was either Charlie Otway or it was the Palace bus driver. That's
Something
like
yeah.
the two sort of.
So it was the Palace bus driver. So what happened was he wasn't very well, and I think he had a bit of food poisoning or something. And this was actually told to me by one of the Palace players. So it wasn't anyone from the club that told me. It was one of the Palace players. I won't say who, just to hide their identity. But he wasn't feeling very well, and they dropped off the kit to the stadium, and the kit man was doing that. And then when the kit man jumped back on the coach, he was like, I need the toilet, but I'm not having a shit on here. I'm just gonna go. I'll just go to the dressing room. It'll, by the time the players will get there, it'll won't smell anymore. And he was that ill, he sort of missed the plan a little bit. It was all in the press. It was smeared over the walls, over the floor. It wasn't that bad, but Holloway played on it.
Yeah.
Obviously the Palace, he didn't admit to it. Obviously, straight after he'd done it, he was embarrassed by it. He wanted to leave it. And, maybe it went through his head, oh, if I leave it, they'll think someone from Brighton's done it and I'll be in the clear. And, of course, Holloway's gone in and he's gone absolutely mental. There's if you go onto Prime Video, there's a thing called When Eagles Dare.
Yeah.
I know that'd be a very difficult watch for Palace fans, but you see how angry Holloway was.
I watched that one episode just to see if they had included anything about Poogate. But yeah, there is obviously that little bit of Holloway going absolutely bonkers.
And it just sort of, it all kicked off then. But I'm led to believe that the Palace coach driver admitted to Holloway after the game that it had been him. And then obviously Palace had kept that quiet.
Yeah.
Obviously Holloway is not going to come out and backtrack on everything that he said. So, it all just became this massive scandal, this massive rumor around the whole club. Everyone who had been down in that changing room area had actually got questioned about why they were down there with their intentions. I got questioned because I was working the shop and we'd always give the programs to the away team. And I had to deliver it to the dressing room. So I walked down to the dressing room, handed it to their kit man, walked out. And then the next thing I know, I'm getting dragged into a room. Right, what were you doing down there? And I was like, whoa, like it wasn't me. Like, could probably see that it wasn't me.
They got there before me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a crazy time. So but we got dragged into so many staff meetings over that period, and then there's the whole Gus getting sacked on live TV, and that's just not true. That was he got informed by his lawyers that your services are terminated, and then the producers at the BBC have gone, let's make it out as though you got sacked whilst you're live on air, and it was a sensational story for them to have, and Gus being Gus wanted that attention and wanted that, but it never happened like that.
Yeah,
No.
It doesn't seem like the thing the club would do. I suppose, obviously, because as you say, it was like there had been so much happening. I think I remember Gus saying after the 3-1 win against Palace in February, this would be the perfect game to end on. I think that was the words he used. And then obviously there was a lot of rumours about him going to job interviews and then rocking up late to games because he was off being interviewed by Reading or whoever. So it was obviously a very turbulent end to an otherwise fantastic season. So when you went in there, Matt, under Oscar, was there much fallout from that still going on? Was there a hangover from the players, or was it sort of like new manager, fresh start? off we go.
I mean, when I came in October, it didn't really get talked about. You know, Gus never got talked about at all. None of the sort of the previous season got talked about. So I'd probably say there wasn't a hangover, and there was a real. I think there was that desire to get into the playoffs and to do well, just to prove Gus wrong a little bit. You know, and I think under a new manager, everyone there wanted to prove themselves. And I think there were some players there who, you know, really wanted it, and the way they went about it. I mean, Adam Alabd falling out with coaching staff in the dressing room at home to Reading didn't help his cause, you know, which is why he ended up leaving, unfortunately. I don't know the exact details of that. I just remember hearing about it from a couple of the lads afterwards saying, because I didn't actually go into the dressing room at that point. So, you know, but it very much felt like we want to do this to prove people wrong and to prove we are a good team as well. You know, and I think that when we brought in Jesse Lingard, I think that helped. Yeah. You know, I think he added that extra bit of dimension to us. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. Do you guys remember the Millwall away game that season?
No,
was it David Lopez penalty?
Yeah, so it was before half time. Jesse Lingard won the penalty, and it was the softest penalty I've ever seen in my life. And half time, the tunnel at Millwall is very tight, very small, and you're very close to the home dressing room where the away dressing room is. And Danny Shittu took a certain disliking to Jesse Lingard's antics in the box and was letting him know about it. And it was him, Jesse Lingard, Ian Holloway having a go. Gordon Greer was trying to obviously stand up for Jesse Lingard, and you know, and I was just seeing this big Danny Shittu having this go at Jesse Lingard, and I was laughing. I was behind it and I was laughing. And then Ian Holloway looked me dead in the eye. What the fuck are you laughing at? And I was like, oh, shit. God. Right, I'm off now. See you later. Like, you know, but you know, that galvanised us that day as well. So you know, it's another funny story as well. So at half time, after all that had happened, so I would usually go out with the players with Juan to do the warm up. And Juan's English wasn't the best. It really wasn't. And he, Millwall fan, was shouting at him, going, "Telling your fucking players to dive, you absolute cheats," and all that. And Juan was like, "Yes, tell him, yes." And honestly, this bloke looked like he wanted to kill him. Like, he looked like he was just about to jump over the advertising hoarding and kill him. And I was like, "Juan, shut up. Shut up now. Please shut up. Don't say anything else now." Oh, he was a character though, Juan.
Oh, amazing.
So we had that season as well. We had to train sometimes with Dean if the training pitches weren't good enough. And so, do you remember where the old away end used to be?
Yeah.
Sort of nearer the railway tunnel.
Yeah.
So you know that whole area that had all the food places and the temporary club shop and that. So so there were travellers there one day, and we had to train there, and we took security guards with us. Everything. It was, you know, it was like a military operation. Honestly, the way the club handled it. But Juan was told, right, do not do shooting drills. Direction. Like, just don't do it. Just don't. No need for it. There's another end. Do that. No. I do it my way. I've set up training. I shoot that way. What worse could happen? If the ball goes over there, Juan, we're not getting the ball back, mate. Oh, we get the ball back. It's our ball. We get the ball back. That's all right. Okay. So the first shot goes over the fence into this camp of caravans and everything. And everyone's looking, like, normally it would be me or a couple of the other coaches and stuff would go get the ball. Everyone's looking around and we're like, oh, we ain't fucking going. and Juan goes, I go then. He storms into this camp. All the security like, what the fuck is going on? We're all like, the training session by this point had stopped. Everyone was like looking in like. 3 or 4 minutes later, Juan comes running back in, going, we not to get the ball back? We not to get the ball back? And these big lads come at the top of the stairs where one had just come from, and we were just letting ourselves laughing. It was brilliant.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. Just wanted to ask a really quick question. Just going back to Gus. And I actually can't remember what the question is now. About the club's respect for him. That was it. And that we don't really see him mentioned. What was it like in the Brighton dressing room after that Palace defeat? Did you know much of what happened in the Brighton dressing room at that point? Because
what in the playoffs?
Yeah, in the playoffs, because nothing's ever spoken about from when Gus left, and like the club never tweet it, they never put any articles on about him or anything like that. So yeah, was you aware of any I don't know, aggravation towards him?
From the players?
No, from the club themselves.
I mean, it was very much the club were nothing leaks out of this club about Gus, and it was all very done officially. And I think had it not ended so sourly, Gus would be a legend. He'd be one of the most revered managers at the club, but because it was so sad. But the club, it was very, the communication was Gus is no longer the manager. End of story. Yeah. We don't talk about it anymore, and it was very, very hush hush. It wasn't let's celebrate this fantastic manager who has got us where we're going to be, where we want to be, and it was just very much right. Gus is no longer first team manager. We will announce a replacement in due course.
Yeah, fair enough. That was a burning question just after you finished the playoff segment. So sorry to cut back there.
No, that's all right. I mean, I've heard stories. Obviously, Vicente came out straight afterwards, didn't he, and really laid into Gus. And I don't really think that was a sort of a view shared by a lot of the players. But I think with Vicente, he obviously came out and was frustrated that he wasn't playing that often, and the general consensus around that was Gus's ego was bruised because everyone loved Vicente and not Gus. To a point where he allegedly had Vicente by the throat after the Palace semi-final in the first leg. And that's why he wasn't included in the second leg, because apparently Vicente went into the dressing room and basically screaming in his face, "Why didn't you bring me on? Why not play me?" And then Gus completely dropped him out the side. So,
and just to think that if he swallowed his ego a little bit there, we could have had Vicente playing, and maybe the story would have been different.
I mean, I think the problem is though, Poogate really fired up Palace.
Yeah,
and I think when you look at what our form was going into the playoffs, and how much of a favourites we were, I don't think going to Selhurst Park and getting a 0-0 draw was a bad result.
No, it was good.
Because it shut them out, and you're going to have to come to our fortress where you've lost heavily earlier on in the season to try and get something, and then something like that happens and it galvanises them. And unfortunately, Wilfried Zaha was on fire that day, and and
we don't talk about that.
Yeah, it's just a shame because it'd have been nice to have gone up that year, but also as well, I don't think we'd have been ready at all as a team. I don't think we would have been ready, and I think the players that would have got us up, I think we would have ended up losing and bringing in players that necessarily weren't right for the club. So I think the way we've done it has been right, and it's gone the right way, I think. So
oh, definitely. I wouldn't have changed our story. Like, obviously now, I can say it because hindsight is the best thing in the world. I wouldn't change our story for anything. That season we went up, even the season before we went up with Hughton. It was just unbelievable to watch, and you could just see the rise, obviously, from when Sammy left, which we'll get onto Sammy in a minute. But from when he left, the rise was just went straight up. obviously after Hughton kept us in the league. So it's great to see.
So before
yeah,
we get on to Sammy, do you want me to tell you these Leroy Lita stories?
Oh, I do actually. So yeah, Matt sent us a message before he came on, just listing the stories that he was going to tell us. And to be honest, didn't expect to see Leroy Lita's name in there. So yeah, Matt, take it away.
So the first one is, I don't even think he's aware of it so much because a bit of alcohol may have been involved. So obviously we had the staff Christmas party at the Amex where all staff get to go, and it's basically for the players it's another Christmas event we got to go to, but for the staff there it's we get to share a table with one of the players. Who are we going to get? And and to be fair, the lads are really good. They get involved, they chat with everyone, and we all had the next day off, the players and the coaching staff and the backroom staff. So we were like, should we go out? Should we go out in Brighton? Just go out for a few drinks. So pretty much I would say the whole squad, I think minus a couple. I don't think Solly March came out. He was a bit boring back then. I don't know if he does go out now, but he was a bit boring. He was a bit boring back then. So we all went out, and so we're going down North Street. It was the main lot was me, Kemi, Dunkey, Kasky, Wardy, the main lot. And we're walking down. Now I had this short sleeve red and white check shirt on, which in hindsight in December was probably not the greatest of fashion pieces to be wearing out.
Yeah.
So we're walking down North Street, and because everyone had been commenting about it was supposed to be a smart casual, and I was sort of rocked up in this red and white check shirt, and it sort of shone out above what everyone else was wearing. And we're walking down North Street, and Dunkey was like, I want to wear your shirt, mate. So we're walking down North Street, swapping shirts. Of course, he said he had a long sleeve shirt on. So I was like, yeah, I'm loving this, getting a bit of warmth now. And then Kemi gave me this leather jacket that had all these diamond studs on it. So I was like, yeah, I'm keeping this. Loving life. I was toasty after that. And then we went into a club. I can't remember what club it was. The names change all the time. But drinks were flowing on the tables, let's say. They were constantly coming. And Leroy Lita came up to me, £20 note in his hand, gave it to me, went, go and ask the DJ to go and play this song. I was like, what? And he just sort of walked off. I was like, all right, just pocketed the 20 quid. Thought, just made 20 quid there. I made about 200 odd quid from that night from just Leroy Lita. Because the songs that he was asking for, I was like, he'll play it. I went home with a good 200 quid that night, just from him giving me 20 quid to go and give the DJ some money. And so that was the first story. And the second one.
What song did he want you to play?
Yeah,
it was just, I can't remember the song name. It was the ones that were popular at the time.
Yeah.
So it was ones that were being played on the radio all the time. And I was just like, I took my chance. I was like, he's off his face. He won't know. They're bound to play. They're bound to play it eventually. And then we left that night, and me and Kasenga Lualawa walking through the lanes, and he was going. People were obviously recognising. Oh, that's Lualawa. You're right, Kaz, all that. And he's going up to people randomly, high-fiving them. And I'm like, I've got to get you in a taxi and get you home. This is just ridiculous. He's mad. I love Kaz. He's brilliant. I still speak to him now, and he's such a good character. And then so the other Leroy Lita story was, so the lads obviously they all have their own Christmas dues, and they all went to Ireland for the week. It was after a game. They went off and were due back on the Tuesday. Leroy Lita didn't turn back up on the Tuesday. And everyone was like, oh, where's Leroy? He got back, didn't he? Yeah, he was back on the flight with us. Don't know where he's gone. So everyone trying to get hold of him. No one could get hold of him at all. So we're a little bit like, what's gone on here? This is a bit strange. And then it was the next day. I was talking to one of my friends about it, and he said, oh, Leroy Lita, yeah, he's renowned for it. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, when Leroy Lita played for Middlesbrough, after a game on a Saturday, he used to go back to Bristol because that's where where he originally lived. He used to go back to Bristol and go out clubbing and then get a taxi late Sunday evening, I'd say Sunday evening, sort of Monday at like 4 a.m. Get a taxi from Bristol up to Middlesbrough and rock up to training. In a taxi, and he'd be about 3 hours late, and he just went, "Oh, just find me." And anyway, no one could get hold of Leroy Lita, and it was just like, well, we can't. Like the club were like, we can't let this out, can we? We can't, we've lost one of our players on this Christmas do. It was, the Friday morning, Nathan were walking through the sort of the dressing room areas because they had. Like, it was a corridor and different dressing rooms. Like, the first team weren't all in one dressing room. It was like 2 or 3 split up. The 21s, 18s were all there as well. And we're walking through, and we just sort of looked in the dressing room, carried on walking, and then both looked at each other. Leroy. And we sort of both walked back, and it was Leroy. Nathan just sort of went in there, and I could hear Nathan go, "Where the fuck have you been?" And I just sort of walked off. I was like, I'm not getting involved here. I'm going to go and get my breakfast. Where he was. He didn't tell anyone. He just sort of turned up, got in his training kit, and expected everything to be back to normal. And he was swiftly told to basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was strange.
Well, I can imagine the club was he on loan from Swansea at the time?
Yeah.
I can imagine they were contacting Swansea and getting those termination documents as soon as possible.
he was gone straight away. He was a strange character though. He was weird.
How many goals did he score for us? 2? 1?
Yeovil. I think that's the only goal.
Yeah, I can't remember him being prolific. But
no, it certainly wasn't a name that is remembered for the good things. That's for sure.
No.
But as I say, so you was there obviously when the managers changed over then from Oscar to Sammy. When Sammy
before we go on to Sammy, Joe, so a quick question about Oscar and Oscar leaving. Now, a lot was made, I think, in the press and on fan forums about Oscar falling out with recruitment, with this idea that there was a barrier to getting players. I think at the time it was David Burke was head of recruitment.
David Burke, yeah.
I believe. Well, again, it was all sort of like a lot of rumor going around about how he was one of the main reasons Garcia left. Is that true, or was it just Oscar had? He just felt like this is just my time to leave.
I think there's an element to it. I mean, David was good in what he did with sort of running the football side of things. And I think he sort of took on the recruitment role as I can do this. And I think for whatever reason, it never sort of worked out as planned. I think he had an idea of the players that we wanted to bring in. You had Tony Bloom who had ideas of what players to bring in. Oscar wanted players. And I think eventually it was just a culmination of things that eventually led to Oscar's resignation. I think that was probably one of many other reasons why, which was a shame because you had that such high of that Forest game, and to then have that such low. I mean that Forest game was unreal. I mean, were you guys there?
I was there.
I wasn't, unfortunately. I was watching on Sky Sports. But yeah, I certainly had the feelings of being there.
Yeah, it was.
Forest, it was
unreal.
It was interesting. It's funny because obviously we did the whole week leading up to that game, and we never really expected anything. And we were dependent on the Reading and the Burnley game as well. And obviously Ashley Barnes was at Burnley, so I was messaging him all week going, you better do us a favour, mate, and I actually travelled up on the supporters coach that day to work the game, and I got up there and straight sort of into the dressing room, and my job was actually to watch the Burnley Reading game in the press area and sort of feed back to the bench what was going on. So when obviously what was going on in that game, I was sort of feeding back to the bench as, this, Reading are really pushing now, maybe, and it was just sort of the communication. And obviously the Reading game actually finished before ours.
Yeah.
So, and that was before we even scored. And I just remember just on the radio, just like, right, Reading game's over, 2-2. And knowing that the only way we could get what we wanted to get was by scoring. And it's sort of, I was watching our screen, and then as soon as Ujawa scored, I was out of this. So it was a room that was next to our dressing room, and I was watching it with the Sky reporter at the time, and I literally was going mental, jumping up and down. I actually ran out of the tunnel, bearing in mind all the Nottingham Forest players who weren't playing were stood at the end of the tunnel because they were obviously going to do their lap of honour and all that. I've come running out, screaming, running down the touchline, going mental. And sort of, there was all the celebrations, and as we're sort of all coming back in, the Sky reporter went to me, just so you know, we actually had a camera filming you that whole time. So we may use that in the end credits, just so you know. And I was like, oh no. And as I was walking back in, all the Nottingham Forest players were laughing, and I was like, oh, here we go. Right, this is going to be
Did they use the footage?
I don't believe they did, no, which was a blessing in disguise, really. Or whether he was just saying it to me just to scare the shit out of me, I don't know. But yeah, I didn't see that, luckily.
Fair enough. So it's an important role to have, though. I'm sure with every single kick of the ball in that Reading Burnley game, you was feeding it back very swiftly. Otherwise, you probably got a telling off from Oscar for sure.
Yeah, I was sort of I was in Nathan's ear, so it was.
Yeah, and of all the people you don't want to piss off, I can imagine Nathan Jones being one of them.
Oh yes.
Oh man. So yeah, obviously we'll speak about Nathan in a little while, because obviously he took over as interim manager when Sammy left. Was you still part of the club when Sammy took over, and
yeah, I was still
role?
there, and yeah, I was in the same role, and I took on the under-23s as well, so I was doing them. So yeah, I mean, it was a strange appointment, if I'm honest. I don't think any of us really expected it. And he came in, nicest guy ever. Really, I don't think anyone could have a bad word to say about him. He was brilliant, and and his knowledge was brilliant as well. And like I said before, it's just a shame that the tactic that he had never worked, and and you could tell the club didn't want to get rid of him. They wanted to give him that chance to really prove himself, and it just got to a point where I think both Sammy and the club just sort of, it's not working, is it? We need to move on. I mean,
it got far too toxic in the stands. I remember the Millwall game at home, and I actually, so the Millwall fans broke through. I sat in the southwest corner, just next to the away fans, and the Millwall fans actually broke through the stewards and got into our bit. So the stewards.
Yeah, I think I heard about this.
Yeah, the stewards moved myself and my mum, and we were looking after a little kid as well. So they moved us to the west stand to get away from them. And I remember afterwards, because obviously we were near the dugout, the toxicity around me and the words that were being shouted at him to get out my club and all this sort of thing was just.
Yeah, I mean, towards the end of his time there, he it was just really unfortunate, because obviously we all sit behind the players or sit behind the bench, and a lot of fans, you could hear it, and some of the things that were being shouted at him wasn't very nice. And I mean, I think it was Nathan had a pop at one fan for the way he was talking to him, and it had become very toxic, and it wasn't a very nice environment for anyone to be in. And you had kids there as well listening to it, and not just that, but you also had the under-21s, the under-18s as well there. And it's very difficult for them to just be in that situation. You don't want them to have negative vibes, because they are in a different squad in a way, and doing well where they were, and having to, they're sitting there like, oh, if I get pulled up for the first team, am I going to want to go and do this?
Yeah.
Am I really want to go and play there? And it was obvious something needed to change, and I think it was a very mutual decision between the two of them. I don't think it was the club wielding the axe, and I don't think it was Sammy really wanting to leave. I think Sammy did believe that he could turn it round, but also he had that whole, can I turn it round? And I think eventually the right decision was made, and it was just a shame it never worked out, really, especially, like I say, you had that high of the Forest game, and although the Derby game was a bit of a low, I think you had that opportunity to really build on a relatively successful season. And I don't think the recruitment was right that summer either with Sammy. I don't think we got the right players in, and I think it was very difficult to sort of go where we were the season before.
Well, when you're replacing Leonardo Ulloa with Chris O'Grady, you've got a problem. So
exactly,
I think we started that season with a front three of O'Grady, Shamir Fenelon, and somebody else.
We did. I remember going to that game and seeing Shamir Fenelon in the stand game, because he's a local lad.
He's playing for Horsham now.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's playing up there, isn't he? But I mean, in Chris O'Grady's defence, he did score. I think he scored 10 in a very poor Barnsley side. So I don't think. Well, of course, it was never going to be Ulloa levels, was it? But
No.
oh yeah. But anyway, so is it true then, Matt? Like again, because as fans who aren't a part of the club, and we don't have the information and the insight that yourself do, we run off of rumours. So is it true or is it untrue that Sammy offered his resignation, but Tony Bloom turned him down?
Yeah, I think he went to. I think it got to a point where he felt he had to resign, just to. And Tony Bloom went no, and it was sort of carry on. I believe in you, know. And I think credit to Tony Bloom. I think he's. I don't think I've got a bad word to say about Tony Bloom, and I fell out with a few people at the end of my time at the club, but I couldn't say a bad word about Tony Bloom. He's one of the really, really good guys who has done everything they can for that club, and I can't fault anything that he's done.
No, for sure. So obviously Sammy, not unfortunately for him, but not quite unfortunately for us, because obviously we then went on to bring in Chris Hughton. But before that, obviously Nathan Jones took 2 games against Reading and Fulham, if I'm not mistaken. So what was I always wanted to know this. What was a Nathan Jones dressing room like? Because I really wanted him to get the job after those 2 games. I watched his post-match interview after the Fulham game, and I was like, this guy has to be manager.
I mean, he was passionate. He still is passionate.
Yeah.
You just got to see that the players wanted to play for him. I'm not saying they didn't want to play for Sammy, because they did, but Nathan put his stamp on it straight away. It wasn't a case of, right, we'll keep going what Sammy was doing, but maybe we'll make a little tweak here and there. He put his stamp on it, and he got the play. He galvanised everyone, and it was like, right, come on now, and really got into everyone, and that just brought the best out of everyone. If there was anyone you needed at that time, it was him. But then to hire someone like Hughton, who was calm, reserved, it was a perfect appointment at the right time. Nathan did what he could out of them 2 games with the squad that we had, but obviously with it being January coming up, he needed to bring in we needed to bring in a manager who knew what changes he wanted to make to that team, and I mean the Hughton appointment was just perfect.
Yeah,
I feel.
And how much of an impact do you think then? Because obviously I know there was like half a season after the games that Nathan took. How much of an impact do you think he had on keeping the club up that season?
What, Nathan?
Yeah.
Massive, huge. Even them 2 games. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of Nathan. He's one of the I watching his training sessions every day. He is one of the best coaches in this country, without a shadow of a doubt. I've got such high belief that he'll either take Luton to the Premier League or he will manage in the Premier League in the future. I've got no doubts about that. He's fantastic, and I think those 2 games showed the players that they can believe in themselves and that they can do something. And then when you bring in an experienced head like Chris Hughton, but you've got Nathan Jones as his number 2, is still in that environment. It was the only way then was up. There's no way we were going to get relegated that season.
No. Oh, decent. It was really important then for the club to keep Nathan as Hughton's number 2 then, because obviously I think Nathan left after that season, and then Chris brought in Paul Trollope, I want to say.
Yeah, Paul Trollope came in. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think Nathan got a managerial opportunity, didn't he?
Yeah,
Is that
so
when he moved
that's
to
when he
Luton?
went. That's when he went to Luton.
Yeah.
He actually had the opportunity to go to Plymouth. I think it was a few weeks before he went to Luton. He went for an interview, and by all accounts, it seemed like he was going to get it. And then the Plymouth chairman hired a friend of an agent or something that he knew, which was, I think, Derek Adams in the end. And then Nathan didn't get the job, and a few weeks later, Nathan got the job at Luton, and he was always going to become a manager somewhere. I think he had to go somewhere, and Luton was sort of the perfect club. The only way they could have gone at that point was up, and you look at the transformation that he had when he was there. He's just unreal, really.
Yeah, exactly that. It's been great to see, because obviously ever since Nathan Jones, took those 2 games for us, I saw his potential to be a manager, and I really wanted it to work out for him. And I'm so glad that, because he left Luton and then went back, didn't he?
Yeah, he went.
Yeah, so he got the job at Stoke, and what manager wouldn't turn down a job from a club that had just been relegated from the Premier League? With the resources they had and the players that they had, it was just a shame that it just never worked out for him there. And I don't talk to him much about his time at Stoke, and I think for whatever reason it was just one of them where it just didn't work out. And it was funny really, because obviously when he left Stoke he was out of a job, and then obviously there was the pandemic, and and then obviously Luton sacked their manager Graham Jones. I remember messaging Nathan going, right, back to Luton you go then. And he never replied to me, and that's when I knew. I was like,
yeah, he's going back. Yeah,
he's gone.
And then he ended up going back on, I think it was on his birthday, and it was just after his daughter had been. It was just after his daughter had been born as well. So for him, it was just one of them crazy weeks that just, But he's at a club that hold him in high regard, and also just love him as well. Did that. I mean, they didn't when he left, but they do now. So
yeah,
a lot of success, hasn't he? And fair play to him, because he plays. I mean, I've seen, from what I've seen of Luton on TV, they play a nice brand of football, and I wish him all the best, and love to see him come up to the Premier League with Luton.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it
goes to prove how fickle football fans are, because as soon as it starts going well, they're absolutely loving you again. So when did your time with the club come to an end then? Was it after the Hughton Hippier season?
No, so it was the season where you missed out on promotion against Middlesbrough.
Yeah.
I left in the April before then, and
that's why we didn't get promoted.
God.
Yeah, it must have been. It's funny actually, because I'm going to go back to the Hippier thing. But when I actually first joined as a kitman, you've got to do the initiation. Anyone who starts has to do initiation. My initiation was I had to sing a song in front of all the players on the centre circle, with all the players having a ball at their feet, and I sung Mr. Brightside. By all accounts, I smashed it.
Nice.
The only problem was Oscar was quite superstitious. So because we done well in the game, after I'd done that, I then had to do it the week after, and I think I must have done it for about 4 or 5 weeks because we'd done well, and it became a little bit of thing. It became a little bit of a thing on Ashley Barnes' Instagram. I'm sure if you follow him on Instagram and you scroll right down to the bottom, you'll see a few videos of me singing in the dressing room. But when we were going through a really bad spell with Sammy Huppier, the morale was a little bit low. So Dunkey actually went, look, Matty, I think you're going to have to come and give the boys a bit of a song. And it was a Friday before a game. I mean, you're going to have to come and give the boys a bit of a song in the dressing room. This is at the new training ground. And I went, really? He's like, mate, we need that lift. Come on. Yeah, we were unbeaten the next 2 games. So I had to keep doing it. And I was like, oh, not this again. So,
well, if we're ever struggling,
Charm,
if we are ever struggling in the Premier League, I'll email the club. I'm sure they've still got your name somewhere. And we'll get you we'll get you in the middle of the Amex and Mr. Brightside. Oh, amazing. So obviously you've been at the club, as you say, right up until the April of the Hughton, the first good Hughton season, if I use those words. So you probably saw quite a good few youth players coming through. Obviously, you've already mentioned Solly March, Jake Forster-Kaski, a few more that come to mind in that time. Robert Sanchez, was Ben White at the academy then?
Ben White, yeah, he was in the under-21. So obviously, I was mainly working with the under-21s sort of towards the end of my time, sort of the last year and a half, but still with the first team as well. So I was sort of doing both. I was doing the 21s games and the first team and training and everything like that. But yeah, a funny story about Rob Sanchez actually. So we when he actually came to the club on trial, we went to Portugal. The under-18s went to Portugal. And the academy kitman, Al, was like, I don't fancy doing that one. Do you want to go, Matty? So I went. And during training, at the end, they'd always do a little like penalty shootout. And Jordan Maguire-Drew was taking a penalty, and he smashed it top corner. And I mean top corner, top bins, like postage stamp area. And Rob was in goal. He dived, caught it. And I remember it was me and the goalkeeping coach, I think it was Mark Mason at the time, looked at each other and went, fuck, this kid's good. Yeah. Like, wow, this kid is good. And once we signed him and you saw him week in, week out, I had no doubts that he would make it in the first team at some point at his time at Brighton. I had no doubt that when he was 16, 17 years old, he had the confidence of a first team player. It's so as you can imagine, at a football club, there's a hierarchy. So you've got your first team. When it comes, excuse me. So when it comes to kit, you've got your hierarchy. You've got the first team who get whatever they want. The 21s who, you're getting close to first team, you'll get a couple of bits. You might get a pair of trousers and a pair of gloves. If you're lucky. If you're under 18s, you've got shorts and t-shirt, and you're lucky if you get a fucking clean jumper. And Rob Sanchez would always come to me in my room and be like, Matty, can I have some trousers, please? Can I have some trousers? Just his confidence in asking. He didn't care.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, go on then. Here you go, mate. So, but he was always going to be a number one, And I think as well, you look at some of the players, you've just mentioned some names that got on to play for the first team, but, some of the players that have come through and are playing, Football League standard. You've got Rob Hunt, who's at Swindon, Brad Barry, who's at Stevenage, Tom Dallison, who's now at Colchester. You've got Will Collar, who's at Stockport, Ben Barkley, who's at Stockport, who joined Yeovil today on loan for a month. You had a good core of players there who went on to still have a really good career, in the Football League.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly that.
It's funny, just as a random aside about Rob Sanchez. I went to see Forest Green Rovers play because they're about an hour down the road from me, and it was when Rob Sanchez made his debut, and he was only a young lad, and bear in mind it's League Two football, and he just looked so calm and collected, and like nothing fazed him. And I knew then, just in that game, I turned to my wife, and who doesn't really like football, who was just there to give me the moral support. I was like, he's going to be Brighton's number one soon. And she just went, okay. I knew it then. So
he was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. It's a shame because I say it's a shame, but you got Christian Walton as well.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, when he joined the club, everyone was like, he's going to be the number one. And then Roberts just come in and just gone, see you later, Christian.
Yeah.
And obviously Christian's now joined Ipswich permanently. So
yeah, we've been quite lucky with our goalkeepers. We've had an incredible array.
We've just signed two more, haven't we? We've just signed that young lad from Charlton, Beadle, and then we've just signed another young Irish lad as well. So so we've just signed two young ones.
We love our goalkeepers.
And Carl Rushworth.
To be fair though, I think they're just trying to keep Casper Ankergren a little bit busy, because how many football clubs have an assistant goalkeeping coach?
Well, he's gone now.
He has gone, hasn't he? Yeah,
he's gone back to Denmark, and they've just brought in some guy who's been working in the MLS. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but I think he's a Sussex lad. He's a Brighton fan at any rate.
Incredible.
But yeah, you're right. They've got like this assistant goalkeeper coach. You're right. You've got to keep him busy.
Exactly that.
Ben Roberts has got the easiest job in the world, just kicking and catching. So I don't know why you need an assistant.
Coach. He's a bloody good coach.
Yeah, he is good, to be fair. He's I remember when he was at the club, obviously, him and Nathan get on really well. They're really good mates, and I think that's the reason why Ben came in, was because of Nathan. Yeah. We sort of needed someone after Ante had gone, and and Nathan, I think, because I think Ben was travelling at the time, and he wasn't with a club, and Nathan got into him, and he ended up coming in, and he was just phenomenal. He was, obviously we had Stocko at the club as well, and I think if you speak to Stocko now, he will only ever say good things about Ben. Ben is good.
Yeah, exactly that, and something else to thank Nathan Jones for. There you go.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm surprised he never went to Luton with Nathan. I really am. I always felt like there was sometimes there was an outside Chris Hughton's inner circle. And I thought that, Nathan was never in that inner circle to a point where it wasn't one of his trusted members of staff, but it was someone that he trusted, if that makes sort of sense.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
And then obviously when Nathan went, I thought Ben might feel a bit isolated and end up going with Nathan, and for whatever reason that never happened. So,
good for us,
lucky.
Really.
The club saw how good he was and offered him however much money to stay, probably.
Yeah, I think a lot of the goalkeepers would say Ben is just class.
Yeah, definitely. So when you look back then over your time with the club, what would you say is the standout moment for you?
I'll probably have to say the Forest game. Just for everything, for the way the game went. I mean, going 1-0 down to that Kushak clanger, and just how that panned out, and I think it just the belief was there. I think in the end it was just fatigue that killed us, and I think when we got to Derby away, they were just too strong for us on the day, and
demolished us.
I think we'd run our race, and we were now just playing catch up again. So, but that was definitely the standout moment for me. Forest away.
Oh, incredible! You've provided some incredible insight, but the one thing that I want to know from the messages you sent was, what did Lewis Dunk do to you on your birthday?
So, in a football club, if it's your birthday, you've got to bring in cakes, donuts, anything for everyone. So I no one knew it was my birthday, and I was umming and ahhing about whether to do it, and I thought, if someone finds out it's my birthday and I haven't done it, I'm gonna get lambasted. So I thought, right, I'll just bring in loads of donuts. And I was in the laundry room, and this is at the new training ground. I was in the laundry room with our laundry boy Alex, and there's a big knock on the door. And the laundry room is sort of in an L shape. So the main part of the laundry room, you can't see our door towards where the first team area is. It's like a long corridor. So I poked my head round, and there's Lewis Dunk. I was like, what's he want? Like, come on now. Like, training's over with. Off. And so I've gone over there, opened the door, and he's like, oh, I just wanted to say happy birthday to you, mate. And he's given me this big hug and said happy birthday. And I thought, that's nice. And it got to a point where I was like, right, this hug is going on far too long, and you're getting tighter with your grip here. The next thing I know, my legs are getting tied together with cling film from Jake Forster-Kasky, and I'm getting carried through the training ground and chucked in the ice bar.
Brilliant.
Yeah, there's actually a video on Dunkey's Instagram of me getting thrown in the ice bar.
Oh my
So
gosh.
go and have a look at that one. Honestly,
Yeah.
And it was at the time that there was an ice bucket challenge. Do you remember the ice
Oh,
bucket
yeah.
challenge?
Yeah.
So I literally I can't remember who, some bastard nominated me for the ice bucket challenge. So I had to do that later on that evening because all my mates were like, "No, you got to do it," and I was like,
I've already done it.
I was like, no, come on now.
Yeah.
I'm sure Dunkey done one in in the ice bath at the new training ground. I'm sure there was a video of Dunkey doing the ice bucket challenge.
I think it's in the shower area.
Oh,
I
okay.
remember him doing it in the shower area, yeah.
Oh my
But
God.
yeah, Dunkey's a character. You
Yeah.
know, he's grown though. He really had. Like I seen him when he first came in, he was a bit of a lad, but the way he's grown, not only just as a player but as a person as well. You know, he's the best captain that club could possibly ask for right now. I love Dunkey to bits. He's such a good lad. You know, I apart from throwing me in an ice bath, I've not got a bad word to say about him. Apart from that really dodgy nose that he's got, like that massive nose.
Oh, I think it was David Stockdale that went on record and said that he was Neil from the In-Betweeners double.
Yes.
But yeah, I get that every time I watch the In-Betweeners. It's just like watching Lewis Dunk. Really.
That's a good shout, actually.
Man. Yeah, there you go. I can't remember what video he said that in, but it's on the club's YouTube channel somewhere. So Dunkey, if you are watching this, don't come at me. That was Stocko that said that, not me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been incredible insight, and I'm sure you have so many more stories.
I've got loads written down here as well.
So. We will definitely have to have you on again, mate.
Question while we're here. So, Joe, before we start, can I just ask a question, please?
Go for it.
Because I've I've noticed on the message you said about a certain goalkeeper and a certain right back who had a falling out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so it was a Sheffield Wednesday game away. I think it was a Tuesday night game. And I think it was last minute, Bruno played a back pass that was as short as anything. And they've gone on to score and scored a 90th minute winner. And of course, we're all deflated. And all I remember is them two going at each other on the pitch, thinking it had gone over. And I opened the dressing room door to go back in there after the game, and I just see them two going at each other, whiteboards being thrown across, both of them being pulled apart from each other. And, you know, it ended there. You know, it never transferred, and they were as good as gold with each other after that. But, you know, that's how much both of them wanted to win. So, you know, it was never a bad thing having two players like that in the same team, because they both wanted to win.
Which was the two, Bruno and
Kuszczak.
Oh, geez, fair enough.
You wouldn't want to get between those two, would you?
No. To be fair, Bruno is a really calm character.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like when someone like that gets angry, that's when you know they're like, it's quite scary. because
Yeah.
Bruno.
He was having Inigo Calderon calm him down, and that's saying something. Normally, Cowdy's the one going mental.
Bloody love Calvin, I do.
Oh, what a guy!
He was brilliant. I loved him. He was fantastic. To be fair, all the Spanish lads that we had were brilliant. You know, I mean, Andrea, I speak to him really regularly still, and he was such a good footballer, but he's just such a good person as well. And you know, I said I'll try and get him to come on, and
that would be lovely.
I'm sure we can get some stories for you. I can get some stories out of him for you.
God, yes.
Yes, please. Yeah,
That would be
definitely. Yeah,
amazing.
that's something that's always renowned. Like people always say that those Spanish lads were a real good community, and I think they found a decent community within Brighton City as well of friends to have.
Yeah,
I know
they were brilliant to have around, and you know, I mean, apart from Leo Joa, who used to give away his shirts after every game. You know, he was brilliant to have around. He was funny. I'll never forget one day Leo Joa, he came in and our laundry boy had made himself a coffee, and he stood there with his coffee, and Leo just come and took it out of his hand. Oh, thank you, Alex, and just walked off drinking his coffee.
Brilliant.
And bear in mind, Alex was only in the job for a couple of weeks then, and he wasn't really in with the players. He didn't really see about it. So he was a bit like, what the fuck? Like, that's my coffee. I didn't make that for you. Oh, it's brilliant.
Oh, dear.
Honestly.
To be fair, if Leonardo Ulloa takes my coffee, I don't care. That guy, what a legend.
There was also the time as well that Alex, I think it was Pete Brezovan's gloves. He'd turned them pink, but it was his old pair of gloves, so he wasn't really bothered. We sort of said to him, "Look, the laundry boy made a bit of a mistake. We're really sorry," and he's like, "No, it's fine. Old gloves. I use new ones now." And then we were like, "Hang on a minute, let's wind him up a little bit." Yeah. And he literally went in there going, "What do you do with my gloves? They're my favourite gloves, my lucky gloves." And Alex was shitting himself, and we just couldn't stop laughing. It was just brilliant.
Oh, hilarious. Sexy Pete.
Yeah, he was a character.
Yeah.
Who was like the biggest character? And that's pretty quite hard to like narrow it down. But was there any player in particular you just think to yourself, yeah, he was the one? Yeah.
I don't have a doubt. He's still a character now. I keep I'm in constant contact with him still because he just cracks me up. I remember one funny story from him. So it was after training. He was always one of the last to leave, not because he was putting in the most work. He was just lazy, just didn't want to get up half the time off his eating food. And he came down to me in the laundry room and he went to me, "Matty, do you know how to send a parcel?" I went, "What, at the post office?" "Yeah." "Who doesn't?" "Oh, can you come with me?" So I literally got in his car round the corner to Lancing post office and had to post a parcel for him.
Fantastic.
Oh
God. I live about a 10-second walk from that famous post office that you just mentioned there. So I'll remember that every time I walk past it now.
Because you did help posting something there.
Yeah.
I just remember I thought he was joking and he wasn't, and I was just like, I dragged him in there with me and like told the woman behind the counter, "Can you teach him how to send a parcel, please? Like, this is embarrassing." Like,
they live such a privileged life, don't they? They don't even know how to send a parcel.
They do.
Oh,
they really do.
How the other half live? Oh dear.
I feel like
another character as well. Actually, was Elvis Manu.
Oh gosh.
He was when him and Kaz got together. Them two were funny. They were so funny.
I'm glad he was funny. He wasn't good at football, but
no, he wasn't good at football, but he was funny. He was a good lad.
At least he's got one redeeming feature.
Yeah, well, somewhat.
Yeah.
Oh dear. I think he made it into our worst Amex 11 the other day.
He did.
So yeah.
Not
sorry, Elvis.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, sorry about that. Footballing ability, not on comedy. But yeah, as I say, we could probably chat about Albion stories all night. but I think we are just about out of time, unfortunately. But as I say, we will definitely have to have you back on, Matt.
Round
It's
two.
been
Definitely. Sounds good to me.
amazing insight, and I'm sure everyone listening is going to have a great time listening to those stories. So yeah, thank you for that, and coming on.
Worries.
It's been great to chat to you, obviously, over the week as well. Stay in contact, because obviously, as I say,
definitely.
we'll definitely get you back on. But cool.
I'll be watching from now on. I said to you, I messaged you earlier, and I said, I've sort of got into my podcast, and I'm traveling to London. It's nice to listen to things, and I listen to Ben Foster's Fozcast and the Under the Kosh guys as well, and and I've listened to other footballing podcasts and just switched them off straight away. But I thought I'll take a listen to some of you guys today, and honestly, I love listening to them. It was nice. It's nice to hear fans actually seem like fans, if that makes sense, and it's really, really easily listening. So
good stuff.
All the episodes I haven't watched, I'm now gonna on my train journey to London now.
That is the aim. And now you can listen to yourself as well. Happy days.
Yeah, no, that'll be strange.
That's what I have to do every time I edit it. Yeah, good stuff. But yeah, as I say, we'll chat to you soon, mate. Thanks for coming on. We've got lots more content coming up, so keep your eye out for that. Go give Matt a follow on Instagram. Is Matt Hayward?
No, it's behind underscore goal. But I might change that at some point.
Fair enough.
Too long.
Yeah, we'll leave it in the description. Go give Matt a follow. Tell him if you enjoy this episode, and we will see you next time for sure. So up the Albion, stay safe and be kind. See you later.
Take it easy,
guys. Take care. Bye bye.
Peace.